And welcome to another episode of Basic Thoughtonomics. I'm Chris Grosso, and for this episode, we're going to talk some Giant football, as painful as that may be. But looking forward to having this guest on. He is the Giants beat writer for the New York Daily News, also columnist for the New York Daily News. He is Pat Leonard. And Pat, thanks for coming on the podcast. How you doing today?
You got it, Chris. Yeah, I like how you described that. Welcome to my daily pain.
Oh my God, it's tough, especially this year.
It really is. It's a year in and year out right now. The Giants, fans want to every offseason believe that certain new players, new pieces, new coaches, developments, every offseason are going to pan out and deliver more promise for the future. And one of the hardest things, I think, you probably agree with this too, is that they just don't see the wins, even in games where you see some positives that you can really hang your hat on, Right. They're not 1-3 or 2-2 right now with some issues. They're 0-4, still trying to get the first game ball for Joe Judge, right?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I want to start with. This has just been, embarrassing these past 7-8 years since Super Bowl 46. And it's just, I'm thinking, what is John Mara's mindset here? This is a franchise, as an upper echelon franchise in the league. They should be associated with the Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Packers. And it's just kind of embarrassing to see where they are. They had the one good year with McAdoo, go 11-5. But what do you think's John Mara's mindset?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that John Mara is the problem. And he's not the only problem. But when I say he's the problem, I mean it starts with him. He's the owner and the president. And as much as he's also the person who will determine when he and Steve Tisch, when an owner or when a coach or GM, their time is up. Mara is the one directing all of these major decisions that have the Giants where they are. And I know Giants fans and the Giants organization don't like to look backwards at how this went wrong. But the fact of the matter is their reluctance to move on from Eli Manning and their inability to separate their emotions from really the thought process and what their heads were telling them set them back so far. And whether you want to talk about the Josh Brown situation, you want to talk about signing off on trading Odell Beckham, if you want to reference, drafting Daniel Jones at number 6, drafting Saquon Barkley, number 2, in order to give Eli Manning a piece to win now and not start a rebuild with maybe a different piece, say, on the offensive line. Right. These are all decisions that no matter who the GM or the coach was, they all trace back to John Mara and how the Mara family is running the organization. And I think, I'd be curious to hear what you think from the outside looking in. When they retained Dave Gettleman and hired Joe Judge and fired Pat Shurmur, and they said, we're turning over everything about how we do things. We're deeper into analytics. They're taking us into the new age. Dave Gettleman's taking us into the new age of football. As a fan, as an NFL fan, as someone who follows this team, did you buy that? Did you believe that? Did you think that was not only genuine, but that the Giants really were heading in a new direction?
No, and I don't like Gettleman at all. To be honest, he hasn't. I usually don't curse here, but I'm going to drop some expletives. He hasn't done shit in his 3 years as GM. Saquon, obviously a generational type talent, but you kind of referenced it. Maybe that was more just a piece to give Eli Manning in his aging years and try and hold on to that, to what Eli was. And maybe they could have traded back in that draft. Maybe could have gotten Bradley Chubb, Quentin Nelson, Daniel Jones. I guess that's something I want to bring up later, but 6th overall, you probably could have got him in the second round. probably could have got him at 17, and he just hasn't looked good at all this year. Whether that's and that's something I want to bring up with you, like personnel. He's not working with too much on the outside, whether it's play calling, like new offensive coordinator, absence of Saquon Barkley. But to me, I think a lot of this falls on Gettleman. I think he hasn't done shit, for lack of a better term. I mean, he had his good 15 in 1 year with the Panthers, but outside that, I really pin a lot of this on him.
Yeah, I totally agree with, and especially because there were so many signings and moves he made when he first got here. Patrick Omame, trading for Ogletree, signing Solder, signing Jonathan Stewart, failing to address and also failing to address the secondary. And I think what a lot of people maybe misunderstand, if they're not blaming Dave Gettleman and the way that the Giants front office and ownership have operated, is that the reason they are right now scrambling to sign corners off the street, the reason they had to sign Logan Ryan right before the season, the reason they had to give Blake Martinez $30 million, all of these, the reason they had to go out and get James Bradbury, it's because they spent 2 years not addressing those needs. And Joe Judge, to his credit, clearly came in here, looked at especially his defense, and said, "What is this?" Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they've been a lot improved this year.
Look at the guys playing in that Rams game on defense.
Yeah.
Adrian Colbert claimed off waivers at the end after cutdown day from the Chiefs. Logan Ryan, James Bradbury. Take your pick, Isaac Yadam or Ryan Lewis, newcomers. Tay Crowder, 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant linebacker out of Georgia. Save the defensive line pretty. The entire defense is new because some new people came into the building and said, we can't play with this personnel. But, that's where, and to move on to Judge here a little bit, that's part of why I'm banging the drum so hard to give this guy a chance as the coach and maybe go to like the Niners model, so to speak, where you're letting the coach pick his GM or at least find somebody collectively who aligns with his thinking and how he likes to build a program, because Judge comes off as somebody who knows football and who also, frankly, John Mara and the Giants, by hiring a 38-year-old special teams coach who had never been a head coach before, they articulated and they showed all of us that they were willing to look and buy into a long-term fix. And so going 0-4 right now, being one of the NFL's worst teams, if not worst team, I don't think that reflects right now, especially when you see some improvement against the Rams. I don't think that reflects as much on Judge as it does on Gettleman. And if it does reflect on a coach, frankly, I think it reflects a lot on Jason Garrett right now.
Yeah, he's been
because
awful.
the defense is improving, but the offense is not. And Daniel Jones, a guy who has plenty of good qualities, even if he has some shortcomings, appears to be regressing.
Right. And, yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to talk about here. Do you think, why is the offense struggling so bad? Is it, like I said, lack of personnel? They got, they have Damian Ratley. No offense to him. They're relying on him. C.J. Board. Darius Slayton, who's done some nice things, but it's not like they have first and second round picks all over these skill positions, with the exception of Evan Engram. And even since his rookie year, he hasn't been an impact player. So how much do you think is it Jones, play calling? What are your thoughts there on the offense?
I think that Garrett's offense is too conservative. They don't go down the field.
Any shots down the field.
Yeah, and then when they do, so I was watching the film this morning of the Rams game, and they set up. I think they had in the first quarter or the early second, they had a first down run by Freeman that went for maybe 6 or 7, and so they were in a favorable second down. They went max protect with keeping Freeman in to block. Caden Smith stayed in and blocked, and they sent 3 receivers, I think, out on routes. And all of them downfield, which is unusual for Garrett. He doesn't usually send guys downfield. And it's like the one time they send guys downfield and they try to open it up, that's when, Freeman can't block his guy, Andrew Thomas can't block his guy, and Jones has barely any time to throw, and he gets sacked. And, to me, I think the Giants, and maybe Jones too, I think, like when their last drive before the half against the Rams was way, way, way too conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically admittedly tried to run the clock out so that the Rams offense couldn't come back on the field, and were content with a field goal rather than a touchdown. And I understand why they're trying to not turn the ball over, but to me, if you're coaching that safely, you're not giving your team the best chance to win. You're shortening the amount of opportunities you have at taking those shots down the field. And I think also you're telling your quarterback, we're going to try to protect you, And I think, the last thing I would say, too, before you weigh in on what you're seeing with Jones, too, Pat Shurmur's offense schemed guys open down the field way more often than Jason Garrett's has so far. The one thing the Giants didn't like about Shurmur's offense was it kind of put a lot on Jones to stand back there, make these downfield throws, and take some licks. And they don't want him taking all these hits and fumbling and losing confidence and getting hurt, which I understand.
The line's got to play better.
But you can't snap so far back. Right. I understand, too, the offense isn't playing, but you just can't snap so far back that you're not letting them take hardly any shots at all.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch. It's just, I get sometimes it's good to have a methodical approach, like some dinking and dunking, take some time off the clock, keep the offense of the other team on the side of the field, but you have to open up the field at some point. You see what the Chiefs do, the Ravens. You need that big game-breaking play sometimes, that 40 to 50-yard play just to get you in field goal range right off the bat. And it's just
right.
It's just tough. They don't really have a running game either. They finally got it going a little bit against the Rams. Wayne Gallman looked pretty good. Freeman had a couple good runs. Maybe that's a factor in it too. But it's just very frustrating.
Yeah, well, and the other thing I would add, too, in Jones's defense, and maybe even a little in Garrett's defense, although he's in charge of this, so it's not really in favor of Garrett. In this Rams game, you had 4 different receivers drop a pass.
True.
Darius Slayton is practically averaging a drop a game. Engram dropped right off the bat the first play from scrimmage, I think.
He's been absent. I remember Jones's first start against the Bucs. You thought these two were going to have a dynamic connection, but it just, since that game, it just hasn't really been there, that big connection.
Well, right. And also, last I would add too, on the Giants were twice in the red zone in that game. Once in the first half, Kevin Zeitler false starts in the red zone, and it backs them up. They had to settle for a field goal. That was after the turnover the defense forced. And then in the second half, they had an illegal formation and then a false start by Caden Smith that forces them to kick a field goal.
Yeah, those are huge.
And that's not Daniel Jones. That's, what the heck is going on here? Why are these guys making these kinds of mistakes? And part of that's personnel, part of that's coaching and discipline. To add on what you said about Engram, too, it is a frustrating combination of they do not seem to be scheming him open in space to take advantage of really the only remaining big play threat they have on offense. But then conversely, you see them draw up a play like we were just talking about for him, and he's open out in the flat, and the ball hits him in his hands and goes right through his hands. So it's for Jason Garrett, he's probably saying, hey, everyone's banging down my door to get this guy the ball. Here's the ball right in his hands, and there it is on the turf, so.
Yeah,
not good enough.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked out, whether it's Ingram's own doing or just the coaching's inability to get him involved. But Just another question I want to ask. Just obviously we're 4 games in. It's been obviously like a tough start to this season, like given the coronavirus and everything, and Saquon Barkley being hurt. Sometimes I feel at the beginning of the season, though, hope springs eternal. Like you have that optimistic look no matter what. Did you envision things would have been this bad September 10th or whenever the season started?
For the team you're talking about in general?
Yeah, for the team.
No. The Rams game we just saw was interesting because it was a loss that put them down to 0-4. But in the positive of it was at least it wasn't that Niners game, because the Niners game, to me, Chris,
oh my God, that was the worst. That was so embarrassing.
That was the alarm bells going off in the house. Like that was something that I did not see coming, even as someone who's critical of their mistakes when they make them and critical of the organization's direction as a whole. I did not see a performance like that coming. I think, you have to be grateful or thankful, at least as a Giants fan, that so far that game was the anomaly. But you can't have games like that. And that game also was reflective to me of the talent gap. The Rams game shows you that Joe Judge and Pat Graham can put together a scheme, and the players can maybe play well enough on a certain day to keep them in a game against a good team, which is encouraging. But on the flip side, you cannot have a game like the Niners where they went back so far in that game. Judge comes from New England, where Nate Solder told me this before his first season here with the Giants. When things aren't going well early in an NFL season.
Pat, you there? Hey, Pat?
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, you kind of dropped for a second there.
Yes, so Nate Solder told me that in New England, when things didn't go well early on in the season, Belichick would constantly reinforce, you're not supposed to be as good of a team in week 1 as you are in week 17. Like the idea behind the Patriots process that underpins all of it is, listen, in week 1, we're going to play, and then we're going to clean it up. And in week 2, we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be better. And so that's the way the Patriots coach and think. We're just going to continue to improve, and by the end of the season, we're going to not only win enough games to get us where we want to be into the playoffs, but then we're going to be playing our best football. So that is where Joe Judge comes from.
Right.
And so that is why the Niners game was such a scare, because that was
it was like a JV team being a varsity team. Like that's how it kind of, the way the 49ers were banged up, the way they had key players out at multiple positions. I mean, that might be a little too extreme a comparison, but that was my initial thought on that game.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, the bottom line was, I mean, the Niners had so many injuries, they were basically playing with their B team or their JV team.
Yeah.
And you just saw, too, that now 2 straight weeks, the Giants, the quarterback who beat them the week before was benched the following week. So Mitch Trubisky beat them in Chicago, and that was benched for Nick Foles in Atlanta the next week. And now we see Nick Mullins beat them for the Niners and then get benched against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Those are disappointing. One thing I would add, too, and obviously it wasn't all negative in this Rams game for sure, but another thing I would add is that watching the film back, the Giants defense was fortunate, especially in the first half. Jared Goff missed a big throw to Van Jefferson wide open. He did not see Malcolm Brown wide open, uncovered in the flat for what would have been at least a 20-yard gain that would have continued one drive when Fackrell got a sack. He didn't see a wide open Cooper Kupp in the red zone that would have been a touchdown, and he threw it underneath. I mean, they were fortunate, even though they played a better game than they had been, they were fortunate that they played against a quarterback who wasn't seeing the field in L.A., or else the Rams really could have hung a lot of points on them, just like the Niners had.
I mean, I guess talking about like silver linings here. I mean, the defense has got to be the biggest one. Really good game out of Austin Johnson. Forced that fumble on Everett. Got a big sack in the red zone. Yeah, I mean, the defense has been really good. They've had some trouble on third downs going into this Rams game, but I think as a whole they've been playing really good. You kind of talked about the ragtag bunch they've put together there, but I guess as far as silver linings go, you got to be, if you're trying to look at positives, you got to be happy with what the defense has done.
Yeah, and you got to feel good about the fact that they've added NFL players to the roster on that side of the ball. You know, even Ryan Lewis, when he came in, he wasn't perfect, but there were 2 third downs where Goff threw at his man, and Lewis had as good of a coverage on his man. I think one time was Reynolds and the other time was Kupp. I mean, I'm struggling to think of the last time I saw a corner with back-to-back tight coverages on third down incompletions for the Giants like that.
Yeah,
another play I'd like to point out too was the new guy the Giants signed, Madre Harper, who's probably going to end up being that starting corner out there opposite Bradbury.
That's a funny name.
His tackle on the kickoff return in the fourth quarter, that was a touchdown-saving tackle, and that was a heck of a hustle play.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, this guy played 5 snaps the whole game, like 3 on special teams and 2 on defense. And pretty much the one play that he ends up factoring into at all, he saves a touchdown by sprinting back pretty much 30 yards into a gap that wasn't even his to save his team and his teammates. I mean, I like seeing that. And that's what I would hang my hat on too if I'm the Giants, and the defense is a huge part of this. But, Judge's players, after that Niners game where you wondered, what the heck happened in the second half, there was a lot of will and a lot of want to on the field against the Rams, and that was good to see.
This division's so bad, as we've seen. Do you think the Giants, do you think their mindset is still as bad as it's been? Like, hey, we got a shot here? I mean, big game with the Cowboys. Yeah, big game with the Cowboys, Redskins, division coming up. Do you think the mindset there is actually like, hey, let's still go for it?
Yeah, no, I think that, I think the Giants, I think what they see is a division that is there for the taking for anyone who gets themselves together. I don't think there's any question that as bad as or let me rephrase it, as much as the Giants defense is not perfect, it is very clear that if their offense were any semblance of competent, that they might actually be a competitive team.
And offense is spiking throughout the league too. Every team's scoring except the Giants.
Yep. No, I mean, like that game against the Rams, as much as I'm poking holes in, hey, they were lucky here and, they were fortunate with this and that. I mean, let's be honest. The defense played a good enough game to win on most days in the NFL in that game. I mean, it's very difficult to you're almost looking at, finding ways to lose on another side of the ball when your defense plays like that and you still lose. And I think when you look at the Cowboys, Washington, the Eagles, now the Giants' problem is their roster still just doesn't measure up to these teams.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they just don't have enough talent and they don't score enough points. And frankly, Jones needs more confidence than he's showing right now. And
it's been tough.
And needs to stop turning the ball over. But I don't think there's any question that if they get, if they win 2 of their next 3, those are all division games. suddenly nobody remembers your 0-4 start.
Yeah, it starts with the Cowboys this Sunday, and you'd figure this is a defense they can score points on. We saw what the Browns did, and of course, like to Giants fans' dismay, it's Odell, like doing everything, catching touchdown passes from Landry, has that big end around, which, like, I don't know, 70-yard run or something, but it's just like salt in the wound. Like of course, you got to see Odell doing that, but yeah, that's a great point. They got a shot here. Win 2 out of 3, and everyone, it might be a tall task, but everyone forgets about this 0-4 start.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously the difference or the qualifier to that is the qualifier is, of course, that saying like if this offense just needs to get going and they'll be good. But there really has not been a single sign that this offense can score. Like let's say the Cowboys offense struggles or defense struggles again and the Giants score 23-24, they're not going to score 30 points. At least it doesn't look like that. It'd be hard for this team to go from 9 to 35. We're not seeing the signs that they're just going to open it up. Now they could become competent, and I think what you saw in that game against the Rams, and specifically when Judge coached the way he did and Garrett at the end of that first half so conservatively, I think what you saw is the coaches saying, okay, we're not going to score a lot of points, but let's see if we can manage this game and keep it close and give ourselves a chance. I don't like that line of thinking, but I think that reflects, their decision or their recognition of or admission of the fact that their offense isn't going to score and that they need to find ways to keep it close in other ways.
In terms of, I guess, we're obviously being optimistic here, talking about if the Giants have a chance to make a run. Let's just say, for argument's sake, and this is probably going to be the case, they're not going to make a run. They're probably going to finish in the top, like have a top 3 pick next year. But so what would you be looking for in terms of the rest of the season? I guess in terms of like positives or growth of the team, what are you most looking for?
Daniel Jones.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, what you're looking at is Daniel Jones, and is he your franchise quarterback? That's something you need to assess, especially given you and I are now talking just hours after Washington benched Dwayne Haskins and now has made him their third-string quarterback behind Kyle Allen and Alex Smith. And the Giants might end up facing Alex Smith in Week 5. Who knows?
That'd be a good story, though. Like a little side note. See him coming back.
Oh yeah. No, but the point is, this is a constant, especially when teams are struggling and losing and they're headed towards the lottery pick. You start thinking about, do we have our guy, especially when there's a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields out there. And, no one's throwing in the towel on Daniel Jones right now. But if you're going to have that high a pick, and if your team is also still losing, then you're reassessing not only the direction of your franchise, and, I would look for Dave Gettleman. This is going to be his last season as GM. But also, you're looking at the process. What are we doing moving ahead into the spring, into the draft? And Daniel Jones, that's the decision. Is he our quarterback? And that's what I look for here. I mean, I'm going to continue to look for how Judge manages the team, how the team continues to respond to him if they continue to lose. You always look for how is the locker room going to be and what's going to change if the team continues losing and how bad could it get. But I think Daniel Jones is the top storyline and kind of the headline of all of it as we monitor how it continues.
I definitely agree with that. And we talked on Judge before. You seem kind of you're high on him, despite the 0-4 start. I don't know. I have a little contrasting take. I see his post-game press conferences, and maybe it's me looking for him to get riled up to show some fire, but you don't really see that at all. He's even keel, staying positive. Says we got to look at the tape a lot. That just turns me off. I want to see a little fire there. Yeah, just what are your thoughts on Judge's the way he is with the media?
Yeah, I expected a little more fire from him at points,
especially after
the Golden Tate.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, after the Golden Tate fight too. I think he and the players and everyone after the Niners game were kind of like they didn't even know what hit him. Here's my take on Judge. I think that he spent a lot of time in the offseason building them up and getting on everyone's case to be the best and being a hard-nosed coach and no nonsense and being that guy who reads you the riot act for a mistake. And, you even saw he did his film breakdown of the Rams game for the Giants website. And on the play where Austin Johnson forced the fumble, when Blake Martinez kind of wraps up Everett's legs and then Johnson comes in and makes the hit, Judge called out Martinez on the YouTube video the Giants posted for missing a tackle there. And, he made a joke like, Blake will get over it. He makes a ton of plays for us, that I'm putting him on blast here or whatever. But that's a reminder for Giants fans that, he doesn't let things go. I mean, if he doesn't say it publicly, that's what he's doing behind the scenes. He's nitpicking every little thing. So he is coming down hard on the details, and he is upset when things go wrong, and he's doing it behind the scenes. And the feeling I get is that he's doing that. He's just not willing to throw anybody under the bus publicly, and so he's like going to the nth degree not to trash anyone publicly to us. And so as much as I would like to see him do more of, or, get more of a rise out of him when things are unacceptable, because we do know that he does have that in him, I do respect that if his reason is he wants to have the players' backs above all, then I do have respect for that, because players do listen to that and do want that from a coach.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm hoping, like you're saying, he's behind closed doors. He's laying into them. He's getting on them, because what we've seen has been unacceptable. I mean, more so the 49ers game. That was just the biggest one for me. But
yeah, for sure. No, that was not acceptable for the Giants or any NFL team. And the Rams game was encouraging in that they looked like a team with an identity in the Rams game, and that was good to see. But, very interesting matchup here with the Cowboys, because, it's Garrett trying to prove himself, and his offense is horrendous. And then Jerry Jones says he's not firing anyone right now, but if Jason Garrett's offense that averages 11 points per game ends up scoring 30 in Dallas, I mean, you're gonna see Nolan get canned in Dallas. That's what I think.
And I didn't realize how long he hadn't coached. I think was it 2014 was his last year he had coached. So that's a good side storyline there. Garrett going back to Dallas, if he could do some damage to his former team there.
Right. Exactly. To me, that is the story of the week.
Yeah. Pat, just want to thank you again for coming on. Just last question. How much have you missed, like, covering the season like normal? You're working pretty much remote, right? Are you at the stadium for home games?
I'm at the stadium for home games. I'm not going to road games, which I miss, and of course is tough. And I am going to practice every day. So every day they have a practice availability, I'm at the Giants facility. So frankly, not many people can say that. There's only a few of us who are reporting there every day, even though we don't have much access. So I'm still there. I've been to every practice since the start of training camp. And the virtual access is tough from the interview standpoint because you don't get to build the same kind of relationships.
Yeah, I had another.
So, yeah, but, hopefully they finish the season. It's obviously worrisome what we see with the Titans and the Patriots and everything.
Yeah.
So
Shit, man.
hopefully we're able to get this all in.
I know, yeah, that's just a whole nother side issue. And I also just wanted to get your opinion. How nice would it have been to have been on the road this past week in LA's new stadium? That place is like a friggin' palace.
I know. Yet, talking about going to a great road city, a new stadium, and also, just the context that you get on game day of seeing who's coming in and out of the game, where guys are lined up, who was wide open, if a quarterback threw somewhere else.
Right.
That's part of what it makes watching the tape for these road games even more important for us in the media, because you don't see the full field on the broadcast, and especially when you're watching a trash broadcast like the Fox put out last week, where they, we missed like a play and a half to start the second half, and they cut away and didn't even show Golden Tate and Jalen Ramsey fighting. I mean, that's something where it's worrisome. Teams and the league and the broadcasters can end up hiding some things from the league. And I would ask people to understand that that's why it's important that the media can report, because if the rules are tightened, people take advantage of them, man. The information gets to you because of access for people like me.
Right. Yeah, man. Hopefully this is just a 1-year thing. I mean, hopefully next year we could get back to some semblance of normal life, especially in regard to sport.
Hey, listen, Chris, thank you very much. I actually hate to cut us short, but I have to jump on a conference call with Mike McCarthy.
Oh, okay.
And so he's about to talk to us. We're about to get the opinions of the new Dallas Cowboys coach.
All right, Pat. Yeah, enjoy that. Just thanks again for giving me a couple minutes, and have a great rest of your day.
You got it. You too, Chris. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. And that's another episode of Basic Thoughtonomics in the books. As always, I'm your host, Chris Grosso, and want to thank Pat again so much for coming on. Really enjoyed this episode. This was more my first episode where it was more conversational as opposed to it having more of an interview feel. So really enjoyed that. You can follow Pat on Twitter at PLeonardNYDN for all the latest Giants breaking news. So, hope Giants fans, you guys listened. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully we'll get off the schneid. Maybe they can get a win this week. Be a tough game against the Cowboys, but who knows with that defense. Maybe they could rack up some points, and hopefully the defense continues to play well. But just want to thank you guys for listening, and hope everyone has a great rest of their week.